Good evening and welcome along to Business Today. I'm Joram Paul Sonko with Winnie Buyins and Akauchi on sign language. We kick off with our daily report as the National Budget Framework paper for 2023 was being published yesterday. A number of legislators raised their worry that the 16 trillion used to purchase classified security equipment had been decommissioned, but the security budget had remained constant. And according to Ugandans, agriculture, tourism and other productive endeavors should have received the majority of the budgetary resources. We have more in this report.
The Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development has backed the government's choice to give security and governance financing top priority in the upcoming national budget for 2023-2024. According to Jen Narunga, the Executive Director of CEATIN Uganda, the majority of the budgeted funding should have been allocated to viable industries like agriculture, tourism, as she explains to Smart 24 TV.
If we are talking about industrialization and market access and productive sectors, you would expect that would provide more resources to agro-industrialization. Agro-industrialization takes into consideration issues around agricultural production and productivity, value addition, issues around market access. They are given again around 1.4 trillion. 1.4 trillion. That's where agriculture is, issues of industry, issues of market access. 1.4 trillion. That's very little money.
While appearing before the Parliament's Budget Committee to present the 2023-2024 National Budget Framework paper, the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development was tasked to explain why security budget had remained constant, yet the 16 trillion funds to procure classified security equipment has been retired. Henry Musasizi, the State Minister of Finance for General Duties, argues in defense of their action that everything was done legally.
Chair, 3 or 4 years ago, we were taken to hotel by the then Minister of Finance, Honorable Bahati, and requested us to okay a continued defense expenditure annually of 1 trillion for special acquisition of a special defense equipment, which was classified. And the annual total over the cost of 10 years has been 16 trillion on that project. But that project was retired as per Annexure 5. So making a saving of 1 trillion. But I see the figure not reducing by that amount, but increasing. When you have retired that expenditure, I want the minister to tell us.
According to Jen Nalunga, while examining the budget, the priorities should come first and then the enablers last.
And Mr. Chairman, I wish to state before this committee and Parliament that whatever is happening is being done in accordance with the law.
Out of the 49.9 trillion, government anticipates receiving 28.8 trillion in tax revenue collected domestically. The remaining amount will be funded by borrowing on the domestic and international markets. The government plans to set up administrative measures to achieve a revenue collection target of 28.8 trillion, including closing all gaps that result in revenue losses, such as document falsification, reviews of tax exemptions to limit them, enhance taxpayers' education, and registering more taxpayers. Benson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And now the Uganda Revenue Authority has become the best performing sector for 2021-2022. URA has been commended by the Committee of Finance for the best job done when they received the revenue of 21,658.1 billion Ugandan shillings. That's about 96.85% performance for the year 2021. 2023, although the legislators are still disturbed with the tax exemptions costing the country 2.881 trillion shillings. Samla Hanifa with the report.
While discussing the Uganda Revenue Authority's budget framework document for the fiscal year 2023-2024, the Finance Committee noted that URA collected more revenue in this fiscal year, resulting in a strong performance of around 96.85%.
As the overall revenue collection for the financial year 2021-22 were 21.658 trillion against the target of 22.363 trillion, representing a performance of 96.85%. Although the overall collection for the financial year was below target, there was a growth in revenue collection of 2.395 trillion, which represents 12.43%.
However, because the nation is losing around 2.881 trillion shillings, the legislators did not ignore the problem of tax exemptions and the standards used to give these exemptions.
You have actually mentioned something during your presentation to do with these exemptions. I appreciate you've made an attachment, but bearing in mind that you've said actually it has cost the government revenue foregone to the tune of 2.881 trillion. It cannot just go without mention. I have tried to analyze the lists, but I failed to get a lot of sense out of it because most of the lists relate to the previous financial years.
Under the law, the minister is empowered to grant tax exemption, but he must lay the report to the House, and it's our duty to accept it or reject it. And once we reject it, it becomes null and void. Honorable Chairperson and Minister, Honorable Mos Lugolobi was the Chairperson of Budget for several years. Some of these tax items here, he presented the report, rejected it, but the House, we buried our head and accepted it without examining it. So it is our duty, Mr. Chairman, that these 2.8 trillion shillings, we have the right to examine each item to establish whether the minister presented the report and he complied with the act.
Honorable Tayewa asserts that because URA has provided numbers without explaining how they were arrived at, they have not adequately outlined their primarily planned activities for the upcoming fiscal year.
Scrutinize these budget framework papers or scrutinize these budgets. And my understanding of the budget, a budget is a costed work plan. We are being given here key planned activities in the coming financial year. And unfortunately, it's too summarized that you cannot easily understand the efficiency in what is being planned to do. If you say tax education awareness interventions across regions, 5 billion, so what? Because I need to understand that you are going to carry out this activity, you are paying allowance of so much, you are hiring a room of so much, you are entertaining so many people, and therefore the total cost is 5 billion.
In an answer to the committee's inquiries, State Minister Amos Lugolobi emphasized to the MPs that while the government is well aware of economic issues facing the nation, they have only invested in the initiatives that will increase productivity and are confident that the economy will grow by 6%.
So that's why, amidst the impact that we had from COVID, we are able to achieve a growth of 5.3% this year. And it has gone beyond what we originally projected. So the recovery has been much, much faster. And that's on the basis of that recovery, we are projecting that we shall achieve the 6% growth. And these are some of the measures. Countrywide, we are sending out money for people to produce through the PDM. The PDM is not only about the financial inclusion pillar, and this is where people make mistakes. We have 7 pillars within the PDM, and we are intervening in all those areas This morning I was talking about agricultural mechanization and interventions in irrigation under the agro-industrialization program.
The Uganda Revenue Authority is to appear before the Finance Committee on another occasion to furthermore discuss the issue of tax exemptions, among other issues. Samlanifa, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Right now, as China prepares for the Spring Festival or the Chinese New Year Festival, there's just 1 week left, and this will take place on January 21st and last until January 27th. The business community in Uganda has been asked to stock up on goods since after the holiday, new and more expensive products will be developed that will be fairly expensive in comparison to the usual ones. They have also been asked to take import substitution into consideration as a means of carrying out the government's policy of Buy Uganda, Build Uganda. Nam Motumba reports.
China has optimized its response to the COVID-19 pandemic 3 years in, with travel restrictions being relaxed and daily life progressively returning to normal. China is yet to celebrate its New Year festival, which is scheduled for 21st January to 27th January 2023. Despite this, Uganda's business community leaders have warned traders about the shortage of goods, which would also have an impact on the country's economy since no taxes will be levied.
That means right from 21st January, which is Eve, understand that, the eve of the year, is going to go up to 27th, because they'll celebrate it for 7 days. So therefore, we expect business probably a little bit to go down. Whoever is probably relating with China in the economic affairs, and as Uganda, you all know that we trade from China. We import a lot of commodities from China. Besides that, even the big investors we have in Uganda, the foreign investors, are Chinese, most of them. So therefore, we are likely a little bit to have a little bit of a negative kind of economic, development. But this will be in a short time.
This is going to affect us because we are very broke. They normally warn us before they close, but this time they are warning phoned when we don't have the money.
bagenda kutandika ku manufacturing buto design hizo zona zigenda kuchoka.
First of all, they're going to start new manufacturing processes and all the designs are going to change, and yet most of the traders stick to one design, and you will find that many things have changed on our market. We shall be receiving new products, and this is going to affect the prices since they are to change.
China imports to Uganda account for about 51% of total imports. Electrical and electronic equipment made up the majority of these in 2021-2022, contributing $238 million. To
assure this country that as in the imports, the Chinese commodities in this country, as in the imports, they are close to 51%. That's very true. And even if somebody goes to Dubai, probably is also going to buy Chinese product from Dubai. That's very true, because very few commodities are bought from Dubai. Dubai is just a transit. So therefore, you find that somebody has gone to Nairobi, and still, if he's buying phones, he's going to buy phones for the Chinese. So these are the countries that are probably enhancing and aiding, some kind of imports. They are still helping imports from commodities from China. So 51%, these are commodities from China.
The Import Substitution Development Plan, which stresses domestic production of imported commodities, has industrialization as one of its goals. By taking import substitution into account, the business community has been encouraged to support the Buy Uganda, Build Uganda program.
At some point, I always want much scarcity of the imports, as somebody would want to promote Bubu, Buy Uganda, Build Uganda. I'm very sorry. At some point, probably we need to have substitutes, we need to have import substitution. You understand that? Much as the Chinese commodities are scarce, this is also an advantage which will compel the Ugandans to probably think out of the box and start going for their own commodities.
China is a substantial investor on the continent as well, supporting considerable infrastructure developments and promoting trade since 2009, when it surpassed the United States as the continent of Africa's largest trading partner. Naomi Mtumba, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Right now, let's look at Uganda's economic outlook. According to the Deputy Governor of the Bank of Uganda, Michael Ego, the country's economic growth is anticipated to increase by up to 6% in 2025 as a result of the anticipated start of the commercial oil production. Samla Hanifa with the report.
Michael Atingi, the Deputy Governor, and Amos Lugolobi, the State Minister for Finance, appeared before the Committee on Finance to provide an overview of the economic forecast and monetary strategy used to combat inflation. The Deputy Governor believes that the nation's oil production will serve the economy and propel it at a 6% growth in 2025.
This assumption is heavily dependent on commercial oil production taking place. And if that assumption doesn't materialize, then we know we run a risk. But that does not rule out the fact that other government interventions are not going to bear fruit. We have already factored in our growth, the 6%. It does include a recovery in other sectors, including agriculture, largely owed to the measure that the Honorable Minister has mentioned, interventions in the PTM to increase productivity.
The Deputy Governor has also recommended legislators to explore loans with a 4-year grace period in future, as the country's public debt now stands at $900 million, which the country may find difficult to settle.
Between now and in the next few financial years, I did mention that our debt service is about $900 million. So that's why we have advised government that if you are going to contract any commercial loans, they should have a grace period of 4 years, because we don't want anything to mature within 4 years, since we are already laden with a $900 million debt service payment in the next 4 years.
However, some legislators have expressed concerns over the government's refusal to put money in sectors that bring money into the country, such as agriculture and tourism.
Literally, government has been cutting the funding that has been going to tourism, the tourism sector. Because in 2021-2022, we had about 178 billion. In 2022-2023, we had 147 billion. And now the figures that we're looking at about 89 billion.
Honorable Basil Bataringaya argues that despite Bank of Uganda's repeated recommendations to invest in commercial agriculture, commercialization of agriculture is difficult due to the high rate of farmers borrowing.
How can we get cheaper finance to these people in their circles? Because they borrow at high interest rates of 36%, and they are the ones who supply a lot of food to this country.
When questioned about the Parish Development Model Program, Minister Lugolobi emphasized that government is fully aware of the difficulties the earlier programs encountered, which is why they are cautious with the Parish Development Model and only give money to those organized parishes through their circles.
Years programs that did not perform so well, and we are picking from that experience. So we are trying to be cautious in certain areas. And that attempt to be cautious in order to avoid a huge loss, I think the interpretation is like there's no money for PDM. But I want to confirm that as of last month, we had released money to over 8,000 PDM circles out of the 10,594 circles.
How much, Honorable Minister?
We are releasing 25 million shillings per circle.
The sectoral committees of Parliament have 15 days to go through the budget framework paper of all government sectors before they present it back to Parliament for debate. Samlanifa, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And now let's look at widening Uganda's tax base. As a means of earning money, the government imposes fees on residents and enterprises, which include financing government and public projects, as well as creating a business environment suitable to the economic growth. Taxes are a tool for growth, but they pose a threat to an already fragile economy, as Brony Ekatosime reports.
Tax policy has an impact on the entire economy by influencing the demand for goods and services, the incentives to work, save and invest, as well as by increasing or decreasing budget deficits. Some stakeholders contend that firms will earn more as they grow more productive because they will incur reduced costs of manufacturing, cheaper energy expenses, and lower taxes without devaluing the population.
We have to look at ways where we can increase our revenue, not by taxing people more and more, actually put bluntly, not by taxing anything that can move. That seems, tempting to get money from. I think we should look at how do we broaden our tax base. And to do that, we need to facilitate business. We need to facilitate business so that they can do business much better, realize more profit, and it's that profit that we are interested in.
We need to look at how best we can be able to tap taxes within the agriculture sector. But that can only be achieved once we have invested as a country within our own agriculture sector, so that it can be able to produce, and in the long run, as a country, we can be able to generate revenue from that. So if we are to be able to enhance our domestic resource mobilization, we need to first arrange our economy, because that is the key player. And if we don't put the sectors right, like I've been trying to break them down to you, then we cannot tax, because tax is on the profits. So if companies are not making profits, that ideally means that you're not going to get enough taxes as you would anticipate or you would wish to have.
Citizens must trust their governments to fulfill these sustainable development goals in order for taxation to function. How we manage income tax matters because it's challenging to collect taxes with a static record, claims Hafsa Seguya of the Uganda Revenue Authority.
This is an accounting mechanism where we need to allow the expenses that helped you in sourcing out this income. Then whatever balance is there, that's what we call the chargeable income, and that's the income we charge to tax. So basically that's what it is. There is no way tax can cripple your sector, because ideally every country pays taxes.
Although taxes play an important role in the facilitation of the nation's economy, they also result into the reduction of disposable income of the taxpayers, which reduces their expenditure for the sake of improving efficiency. Bronya Katsime, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Well, as Africa's public debt has been relentlessly soaring with limited or just ineffective interventions, Uganda, just like Kenya and Ghana, for instance, has had to devise means of taming her debt envelope, which now sits at 78,799 billion Ugandan shillings, with a looming debt burden in sight. Martha Nimsima brings you more.
The approach to taming public debts for majority of African and developing economies that rely on both public and international debts to pull off development goals which they have for the past 3 years have been informed by inflation and low economic growth. Uganda's position has been escalated by more than its failure to manage, structure, and execute debt-reliant projects effectively.
Public debt, I think the public debt is becoming an issue in this country because we fear that it might become unsustainable. Right now, we can still pay. It is okay. But it's a question of time when we are likely not to pay, because we are not improving. Rather, our debt situation is becoming more riskier. And why do I say this? I say this because 5 years ago, we would spend 10% of our internal revenue on servicing the loans. Now we are spending 34% of our internal revenue. And we are projecting to spend 42% in the next coming financial year. So it tells you that less money is available for us to spend on ourselves.
The domestic revenue structure hasn't effectively paid out, influenced by numerous challenges, especially with a robust and banked informal sector, a divided high and middle income sector, and a questionable government expenditure that really cultivates key economic production sectors, much to the dismay of the fiscal policy.
Ideally, the debt is managed in Ministry of Finance, and the choice to use part of our taxes to pay part of our debt is at the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Finance or the Minister of Finance. It's not entirely a URS mandate. What we do is to see that we collect revenue, but the choice to choose what to pay before what lies in the hands of the Minister of Finance to see how the public debt reduces. Because once you reduce the principal, then ideally even the interest will reduce eventually.
The consolidation of debt servicing among low-income countries is regularly affected by their investment atmosphere and the economic ranking, as per international financial institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, where Uganda's reserve assets and special drawing rights are wary.
So that's why we are worried. That's number one. Number two is that we are not benefiting equally from the debt that we have got. Because borrowing is not bad unless you are not spending it in the right things or you are not getting returns. In this country, like I said, is that we get a return of $6 at $1, yet other countries get $6 from $1. So the returns are very low. And as such is that therefore the likelihood of us paying using the investments we have done through the loans is unlikely to come up. This is because of three major reasons. One is our capacity to utilize the loans that we have contracted. Right now we have $5.5 billion of undisbursed loan. We contracted the loan, we have failed to use it. This is too much for us, we can't use it. So that tells you now the problem with debt. Secondly is that we are never prepared to execute projects on time and on budget. On time, the Northern Express Highway, the Northern Bypass, took us 20 years instead of 3 years to complete. 20 years. Even the Uganda railway from Mombasa to Uganda took only 5 years.
The public debt remains a worry in the eyes of economic instability, despite the promising revenue performance. Government expenditure and the taxation revenue are thus expected to play a role in unburdening the country's debt pattern. Martha Nimsima, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And Business Today will continue immediately after the break, so stick around with us. We have more coming up. Smart 24, driving business.
The taste of Uganda in a new international park.
Smart 24, driving business. We'll be back from the break. Let's continue with more business today. Now we take a look at skilling of the youth in the Karamoja region. A program to teach practical skills has helped at least 50 former Karamoja young warriors transition back into useful civilian life. The Skills Hub is established to help them gain the ability to engage in some productive activities like agriculture, welding, bricklaying, construction, and woodworking. And some of the youth, including Brigadier Joseph Baliku Dembe, had been involved in cattle rustling activities.
Certainly, the countless young people receiving the best possible opportunity at life through skill development at industrial hubs say the opportunities are like a fresh ray of optimism. Some of the recipients were formerly feared cattle rustlers, but thanks to the mindset program combined with skill building program, these individuals have changed and are now disciplined and employable citizens.
The training and the mindset orientation that we have been having has been of a great impact. Because at the time that we received these students, we thought that we would not even manage some of them. We saw some of them testified. They were reformed warriors who could sample some raid sometime. Some of them were terrorists in the towns. Some of them were unmanageable in centers and in their villages where they came from. So we saw as if these are like community rejects or what? I think you can thank the state for the achievement that they have done.
Some officials testify how this transformation of humans will be a great resource to the community.
We have been yearning for alternative livelihood for the youth, but with your skills you have got, we want you to put them in practice so that those ones outside there, they should know that there is something from the hub, and from here you must put it in practice. Our chief guest, we started an operation called named Usalama kwa Wote, that peace for all. And since June last year to date, we have had a peaceful environment, and we have collected 683 guns from the communities of Karamoja, 683.
He stated that one of the most crucial is to keep conscious efforts to reduce crime in the city.
I want to inform you that UPDF and the communities around, they are the happiest that NAPAC chose this place to be an industrial hub, because this was a highway of raiders from Kotido to Nabratuk, from Nabratuk to Kotido. This area was a highway of raiders. And you can imagine what development can bring. That you put a development, then you chase away the criminals. So we need more industrial hubs in Karamoja so that we can slim the criminality within Karamoja. I promise this month of January, we are going to reactivate our operations against those criminals that are still disturbing us.
Speaking to the audience, the State House Comptroller notes that the president was sick of seeing so many young people without jobs. Even though it cost government at least 4 million to train one person at this hub for 6 months, the investment in this area was necessary.
Go and create jobs. Because he's tired of seeing people with degrees loiter on the streets without jobs, we decided to pick everybody from whichever walks of life and train you so that you can use your hands. Do you see how good that furniture is looking? But there is no one who has a PhD that has made it. It is your hands. So we want you to move out of here and create jobs.
There is no systematic strategy to skill development for persons who work in or want to work in the informal sector. According to data from the Uganda National Labour Force Survey, at least 41% of youth, or 91 million people between ages of 18 and 30, are not working in any productive capacity. Will such initiatives reduce unemployment? Runa Nahabwe, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And now let's talk matters rerouting the dairy market. Uganda's milk export market portfolio has been packed up with new additions such as the Democratic Republic of Congo, Algeria, and the United States, among others. Now, a win for the buttered business that has had to deal with price variations helped by infestations, embargoes, and seasonal obstacles. We have more in this report.
Uganda's milk receipts rested at $216 million in 2022, an increase from $205 in 2021. This is partly attributed to the tough lessons of trade in the marriage with neighbors such as Kenya, plus other market challenges that sought for proper livestock practices.
But as a government also, we have been looking at different markets in other areas of the world. We are in the process of finalizing the export to Algeria, where His Excellency requested his counterpart that we have that destination, especially for powder milk, that is being produced here. We have received a team from Algeria, and they have assessed the value chain of dairy. Samples have passed from 3 facilities that have powder plants here. We are waiting now to finalize on the terms of export and quantities, because the export permit has already been also finalized by MAIF. And we're estimating to sell powder products to that destination in the tune of $500 million annually, which is going to be a very good market for us. But in terms of international export, we're exporting already to USA, we are exporting to Japan, to UAE, to India, and also in the East African community, other than Kenya itself.
However, there is more reckoning for sustainable production, despite relief cited in the increase in milk production over the past 2 years. 2.8 billion litres in 2021 and 3.2 billion litres just last year, putting in mind production challenges and setbacks.
Management of our sites and the poor management at all levels, the level of the farmer, the level of the business person who is in there, and the level of the extension worker, and the government that cannot follow through all these actors. So when you combine this, you have tick-borne resistance, and tick-borne resistance leads to loss of a herd, the death of cows, the inefficient production of cows. A sick animal cannot give you sufficient milk. A sick animal cannot give you quality milk. A sick animal will definitely increase your cost of production. So all these added together, it's a very big challenge. The second challenge is water for production. Animals need water to produce milk. And we are in the cattle corridors incredibly hit by drought occasionally. That's why you see prices of milk go up in drought period and go down in wet period, because there is water and pasture.
The ripple effect of the trade war in Kenya has sat well in the minds of the major stakeholders in the dairy industry, paving room for exploitation of new markets beyond East Africa.
Package of milk, dairy products going to the Kenyan market happened towards the end of 2018, where the announcement was that the milk was not going to that destination. But as we've been discussing and trying to highlight on these aspects, it was never an issue of quality rather than the trade issues.
With different forces reshaping the dairy market, seasonal shifts in both the dry and wet seasons inclusive, the industry is expected to be aware of the task ahead. Andrew Barije, Samuel Chirimonde, Smart 24, Business Today.
All right, now that brings us to the end of Business Today. We've been coming to you live from Block 42, Nile Avenue. I'm Joram Paul Sonko with Winnie Buyinza Nakauchi on Sign Language. We do wish you a blessed night and a good evening.